Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this webinar on equitable distribution of vaccines. I am Gabriela Ramos. I'm the Assistant Director General of UNESCO for Social and Human Sciences, and I will be moderating this session. I have some logistic announcements to make. Please note, for the Zoom seminar participants, the interpretation is available in English, French, Spanish, Russian, and Arabic languages, and you can select the appropriate channels at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There is a little sign with the world, and then you can select the language that you want to listen to. And so please take the time so we can enjoy the session in your language of preference. The meeting will also be webcasted in English and French, in French languages. And now I'm really pleased to be joined by Hervé Schneeweis, the chair of the International Bioethics Committee, and by Peter Paul Verbeek, who is the chair of the World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology. And actually, they were the ones that gave us the substance to organize this debate and join the global debate on the question of vaccines. I'm very pleased also to have Alejandra de Bellis, the chair of the Intergovernmental Bioethics Committee. And then, of course, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, our dear friend that is always with the good causes of the world. And today, there is no other public debate that is as important or of greater significance than the one on the international distribution of vaccines against COVID-19. It's a great promise, it's a great hope, but it needs to be done in the right way. Today is a great day because it's the very first delivery from the COVAX platform to Ghana. The vaccines had arrived from this fantastic international cooperation instrument that was created in the context of CEPI and the WHO. And so Ghana is the very first African country that is receiving the support from the platform. We also celebrate that the G7 last week agreed to increase their support to the facility to the amount of 7.5 billion. And when we believe this is great sign of flexibility, of solidarity. But however, we are not yet there. We are not out of the woods. And if vaccine hoarding continues and advanced countries cover their population 3 or 5 times, there will be no money, and there will be no manufacturing capacity, and there will be no production, and there will be no logistic that will be enough to cover for developing and low-income countries. So the call is for solidarity. The call is for equitable distribution of vaccines, and we are joined together with these fantastic committees of the UNESCO that have been dealing with the ethics of science to send a message to the world in this domain. UNESCO is not only dealing with these committees on the ethics of the very important issues related to science. We also made a very strong call to go for open science and open cooperation. I think that if we want to come out from the COVID pandemic stronger, we really need to uphold these values and these important issues. And this is why this Global Ethics Advisory Body, the ICB and the COMEST, decided to amplify the global call for solidarity and issue a statement of vaccines based on the global ethical mandate and standing. And today we're launching this statement and inviting the world's leading experts and advocates to join us in pushing towards a decision that makes not just moral sense, and many people have said this, but scientific and economic sense as well. And we are sure that with this moral mandate and their deep knowledge of the issues, this call will really, really be heard. And this is why we wanted to bring you all together and to have very strong messages from the people that count on this debate. Let me go through the motion of this webinar. We will hear first from our dear director of UNESCO, Madame Audrey Azoulay, who is in Africa and couldn't be with us, but she is going to deliver her message on this very important issue. And then we will hear from Director General of WHO, Mr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and then we'll go for our participants here in the platform. So if we could put the videos, please, of our DGs.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, when vaccination campaigns were announced across the globe, the world breathed a sigh of relief. With vaccines, there was hope that we had finally found a way out of this crisis. This was conditional, however, on showing solidarity. We are very far from achieving this goal. To date, 75% of the world's vaccines have been administered in only 10 countries. Over 130 countries have yet to receive a single dose. We cannot continue like this, on the brink of a catastrophic moral failure, as you rightly stated, dear Dr. Tedros. But we can still avoid it if we collectively commit to respecting a certain number of principles. Developing, drafting and proposing ethical guidelines in the scientific fields, this is precisely the raison d'être of UNESCO's Commissions on Scientific Ethics, International Bioethics Committee, and the World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology. At the start of the crisis, these two very important bodies mapped out an ethical path forward to ensure that the health emergency would not lead to isolationism or the erosion of fundamental rights. Their new joint statement on vaccines, released today, also revolves around these humanist values. It sets out an ethical framework founded on three main pillars. Premièrement, envisager les vaccins comme de véritables biens publics mondiaux. Cela signifie que les protocoles, les résultats, les données qui entourent leur fabrication doivent être librement accessibles. Cette pandémie, c'est donc aussi un rappel qu'il nous faut faire progresser concrètement l'ouverture, le partage de la science. Et c'est ce principe à la fois de solidarité, de justice, mais aussi d'efficacité que nous défendons à l'UNESCO avec la préparation d'une recommandation sur la science ouverte qui devrait être prête à la fin de cette année. Deuxièmement, il s'agit d'assurer un accès équitable aux vaccins à tous les pays et à toutes les populations. Équitable, cela veut dire selon des critères clairs, transparents, concertés, afin d'abord de protéger les populations les plus vulnérables et les plus exposées aussi. Je pense notamment à la catastrophe éducative qui a privé plus de 90% des élèves dans le monde de leurs écoles à l'occasion de cette crise et qui nous a conduit, avec la Fédération syndicale l'Internationale de l'éducation, à appeler à considérer les enseignants comme population prioritaire dans les campagnes de vaccination lorsqu'elles se déroulent. Troisièmement, enfin, il nous faut créer les conditions de la confiance des populations, car il n'y aura pas de sortie durable de la crise sans cette confiance, cette compréhension. Cela passe, nous le savons, par des efforts spécifiques en matière d'éducation, encore une fois, de formation, de transparence, pour lutter contre les fausses rumeurs et désarmer ce scepticisme très dangereux qui monte envers la science. Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, rappelons-nous que face à une pandémie, il est absolument illusoire de considérer sa propre vaccination isolément de celle des autres. Parce qu'aucun homme ni femme n'est tout à fait une île, parce que nous sommes, comme le dit si bien le concept d'Ubuntu, je suis parce que nous sommes. Je crois qu'il nous est encore possible d'éviter cet échec, cette faillite morale. Alors mobilisons-nous pour faire un choix solidaire et humaniste. Je vous remercie.
Director General Audrey Azoulay, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends. The development of safe and effective vaccines less than a year after the emergence of this novel coronavirus is a stunning scientific achievement. In combination with proven public health measures, vaccines are giving us hope of bringing COVID-19 pandemic under control. But we will not end the pandemic anywhere until we end it everywhere. The more the virus circulates, the more opportunities it has to mutate in ways that could render vaccines less effective. We could end back at square one. And the longer the pandemic drags on, the longer trade will be disrupted and the longer the recovery will take. Ultimately, vaccine equity is not just the right thing to do. It's the best way to control the pandemic, restore confidence, and reboot the global economy. So I welcome the UNESCO Ethics Commission statement on vaccine equity and solidarity. It is very timely. Today, the first doses of vaccines shipped by the COVAX facility arrived in Ghana. This is a great first step, but it's just the beginning. We still have a lot of work to do and a lot of challenges to solve to ensure that vaccination of health workers and older people is underway in all countries within the first 100 days of this year. Thank you for your support and solidarity. Together, we can end the pandemic and work towards the healthier, safer, fairer world we all want. Merci beaucoup. I thank you.
We thank both Director Generals for this very clear message. It has been concise, and we have been hearing them for long, and we just support them wholeheartedly in this very important endeavor that they are advancing. And that's why we are so pleased that all of the committees have joined together in this important statement. Now, let me now give the floor to our dear friend, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. We don't need to introduce you, Jeff. I think that everybody knows you in the UN circles. We know you in UNESCO, a world-leading expert on sustainable development and the fight against poverty. But also I have to say that I was so proud to be part of your Lancet Commission of COVID-19, which also issued a very strong statement on the question of vaccines. So the floor is yours, Jeff, and thank you for joining us.
Gabriela, thank you very much. I wonder if I can start my video. So far, I'm not able to. Can you hear me also?
We can hear you. I happen to see you. That's very strange. But anyway, you have a wonderful, very handsome picture in the screen, so it's fine.
Okay, but I think if the host could let me show my screen, but if you do see me live, that's fine. Otherwise, I find that my video is blocked somehow. Oh, here we go. Now I should be able, okay.
There you are.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody, and thanks to UNESCO for this very important statement. Let me make just a practical set of observations, if I can, and thank UNESCO for the leadership. And I want also a very practical push in the coming days. We need a plan of action to ensure the mass immunization. And that plan has to extend at least through the end of 2022. That is a logistical reality. Given the 8 billion people in the world, given the supply chains, given the time for scaling up, given the possibilities for mass immunization, this effort is going to extend through this year and to the end of next year, even if we do everything conceivable for scaling up, which we should. As Dr. Tedros said, this is not only a moral imperative, it is absolutely practical. The more the virus circulates, the more the mutant lineages threaten the entire world with reinfections, new infections, workaround from vaccines. This is something that is just sensible for every country to ensure that there is universal coverage. It's crucial to understand that our plans are not for universal coverage right now. COVAX, which is our best hope, it is our global multilateral mechanism, is aiming, even under its current plans, for only 20% coverage by the end of 2021. This is a stepping stone, but it is wholly inadequate. And we need to ensure that we are getting mass coverage by the end of 2022 with all urgent speed for scaling up right now. The reason I come into this story, since I'm not a virologist, I am not a medical doctor, I come into this story because I'm an economist and money matters. The reason we will not have scaling up right now is we do not have the funding committed for scaling up. This is shocking. We have created the so-called ACT Accelerator, which is to ensure access to the tools to fight COVID, including the vaccine component, COVAX. But this has not been properly funded. The ACT Accelerator that includes COVAX and funding for therapeutics and for PPE and for other commodities and logistics has a financing gap just through the end of 2021 of at least $23 billion. And when it's looked at carefully, probably $30 billion gap this year. Then that only gets us a modest step to the goal of comprehensive coverage. We have another perhaps $20 billion gap in 2022. So we do not have the funding now in order to make the contracts, the supply chains, the scale up, the preparations, the ground level preparation for the health workers to provide the immunizations, the logistics, the training, all the things that a normal, planned, comprehensive effort would entail. And for that reason, we must be prioritizing right now the funding of this effort with full assurance, $40 to $50 billion. Now, I want to put that into context briefly. The United States is about to vote on its third stimulus and support package, the rescue package of President Biden. That's $1.9 trillion. That comes on top of a $2.1 trillion program last March and a $900 billion program in December. So it will be $5 trillion between March 2020 and March 2021. 5 trillion. Here we are looking worldwide for 40 to 50 billion. Do the arithmetic. It's 2 to 3% of what the United States alone is going to be voting. So we obviously have the funding, but our governments are not giving the funding. And then they pride themselves, well, we just gave another 3 billion or 4 billion. That is not an answer to what we need right now. What we need right now is a plan, a budget, and the commitments so that COVAX can make the supply contracts with Pfizer or Moderna or Novavax or Sinovac or the other vaccine producers. I'll end on this point. There is an extremely practical way to raise this $40 to $50 billion almost immediately. And that is that the International Monetary Fund is on the verge of voting a new special drawing rights round, which would create about $600 billion of new SDR, special drawing rights reserves. Many countries in the high income world have already told the IMF and the world community, we will recycle our new reserves into a special fund, perhaps $100 billion of SDRs recycled that could be directed towards the containment of the pandemic, which we know is not only saving lives, ending this scourge, but has the highest conceivable economic return imaginable because trillions and trillions of dollars of economic recovery depend on stopping COVID-19. So my proposal and my plea is worldwide call on the G20 and on the IMF, vote the SDR allocation, recycle the amounts to the high-income countries, create special funding, empower ACT Accelerator and COVAX, enable a rational, comprehensive, just, inclusive, and smart plan for scaling up through the end of 2022 so that we get this job done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I have to say that it's great to have you as an economist, because the fact is that the economic solutions that we need to put in place, of course, are based on these very concrete elements that you just described. But they're linked, as I said at the beginning, with the moral ground. It links with the solidarity. It links with what Dr. Tedros mentioned, just common sense. Nobody will be safe if until everybody is safe. And I think that this is the call that we are having today. And I'm glad that you can stay with us for some more minutes, Jeff, so you can hear our wonderful chairs of these two committees, Hervé Schneidweiss, as I said, and Paul-Peter Verbeek. They will Alejandra de Bellis also will comment on the statements at the end. But the fact is that I also want to thank all the members of these consultative bodies. You really make us strong. You make us, UNESCO strong with your knowledge, with your commitment, with your passion, and the excellent work that you have been doing through the pandemic and the multifaceted challenges actually to advance UNESCO's mandate in the bioethics and ethics of science and technology, and to contribute to a better understanding of such critical, important topics as the ethical implications of neurotechnology, the rights of future generations, Internet of Things, or ethics of land use. But I think this moral ground that is so important, it's providing with additional elements, and you will see in a minute, dear friends that are joining us in the webinar, how comprehensive, how solid is this statement from all points of view, and how we want to really make it resonate. I invite you to just tweet it and make it viral, because the reality is that adding a very strong voices to advance what Jeff and the Director Generals just show. It's plain common sense to finish with the pandemic and to go back to full recovery, human, social, and economic recovery. So please, could I please ask Professor Hervé, dear Hervé, to take the floor, and then Peter Paul.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Directrice, chère Gabriela. Merci pour le soutien clair apporté par l'UNESCO et l'OMS à ces différentes questions. L'éthique n'est pas juste une question morale, c'est la mise en pratique de nos valeurs. Comme le dit Paul Ricoeur, à l'affirmation pour soi de la liberté, vouloir que la liberté de l'autre soit. Nous avons mis en œuvre cette deuxième déclaration pour compléter la première que nous avions faite en mars, qui est disponible sur le site de l'UNESCO. La première chose que nous souhaitons rappeler à travers cette déclaration, c'est que l'épidémie continue. Et le professeur Sachs vient de dire qu'elle continuera en 2021 et en 2022. Donc, tout ce que nous avons déjà dit sur l'importance de la démarche scientifique, sur l'importance de politiques publiques de santé qui soient assises sur des réalités scientifiques, sur l'assistance économique aux populations les plus vulnérables, les déterminants sociaux de la santé restent l'élément majeur de la santé. Tout ce que nous avons déjà dit sur les vulnérabilités et l'attention apportée aux individus les plus vulnérables et les différents rapports du Comité international de bioéthique restent plus que jamais valables. Sans une éducation, sans une intervention pour les plus vulnérables, les gestes barrières et la limitation de la diffusion de l'épidémie ne sont pas possibles. Nous devons donc agir d'abord, aujourd'hui et partout, dans une démarche de prévention et adopter toutes les mesures limitant la diffusion de l'épidémie. Le deuxième point sur lequel nous insistons dans cette déclaration est bien évidemment l'éthique de la recherche vaccinale. Il n'est pas envisageable une seule seconde de ne pas disposer aujourd'hui de vaccins qui soient sûrs, qui soit efficace et dans le même temps qui soit disponible et disponible à un prix équitable. Nous devons donc mettre en œuvre tout pour que ces vaccins atteignent les populations le plus rapidement possible. Et à partir de là, nous rappelons dans notre déclaration l'importance de la démarche scientifique, celle qui existe déjà et celle qui va continuer à se développer, car de multiples vaccins permettent plus d'espoir pour arriver à vacciner l'ensemble des populations et lutter contre les différents variants. Et nous soutenons bien évidemment l'initiative COVAX et le fait que s'il y a des priorités dans un pays, il n'y a aucune raison que ces priorités ne soient pas de même nature dans d'autres pays. Nous insistons donc dans notre déclaration sur les questions du coût, mais aussi sur les questions de la production et sur les questions de la distribution, car nous devons lever tous les obstacles afin que le vaccin soit reconnu comme un bien commun. Il est très important que dans ce contexte, tout ce qui a pu être fait et discuté dans un contexte de régulation des droits de propriété intellectuelle soit levé à circonstances extraordinaires, mesures extraordinaires. Nous devons trouver les moyens de produire les vaccins efficaces là où ils sont nécessaires. Les retombées seront également de produire des infrastructures dans les différents pays concernés. Bien entendu, nous devons animer, poursuivre, soutenir le partenariat public-privé. Nous avons vu son succès puisque c'est la recherche académique qui a permis le développement des vaccins, mais bien sûr, il faut une industrie pour les produire. Nous appelons à la responsabilité de chacun, y compris la responsabilité des régulateurs, la responsabilité des accords internationaux sur le commerce, la responsabilité de l'industrie pharmaceutique. Nous devons atteindre les plus vulnérables et avoir une distribution juste. Les plus vulnérables doivent être définis selon un certain nombre de critères. Face au virus, les critères de genre, les critères d'âge comptent autant que les critères, par exemple, de nationalité. Nous devons penser aux migrants ou aux personnes sans abri d'eux-mêmes. Nous devons définir des critères clairs comme la comorbidité, la mortalité potentielle, comme le risque d'exposition, comme le risque de transmission et enfin, une fois encore, les déterminants socio-économiques. Les politiques de santé doivent clairement expliciter dans chaque État les critères par lesquels les allocations de vaccins sont faites. Enfin, nous traitons de la question de l'obligation ou non du vaccin et nous pensons qu'il doit y avoir une non-obligation, mais une incitation forte à la vaccination. Et là encore, la prioritisation de la distribution des vaccins doit se faire sur des bases claires. I will let now the floor to my friend Peter Paul for the last 3 points concerning information, communication, and sustainability.
Thank you very much, Hervé. Let me just add a few words from the perspective of the team that I'm heading, which mainly focuses on the ethics of science and technology. Maybe there are 3 points to highlight in the statement from this perspective of ComEst. One is the enormous importance of open science in this field, and in link to that, integrity of research. So there's an enormous need to share data in an open way between companies and societies to make sure that we can develop vaccines in a safe way and also keep developing new modifications of the vaccine, where research integrity is, of course, also of utmost importance. There is a need for speed, of course, but in the rush for good vaccines, we really need to keep up the principles of integrity. Otherwise, we will be heading towards a new disaster. Then the second line I would like to emphasize is the role of digital technologies in dealing with the vaccines also. They are already widely used for contact tracing, self-reporting, but of course there are new digital technologies in the making in relation to the vaccines to show that you have been vaccinated or to register the results of your tests. And it's of central importance that these technologies always respect human rights and that they are in line with individual values like privacy and autonomy, but also with collective values such as solidarity, diversity, inclusiveness. they're going to be influential. That's the expectation. And we need to make sure that we don't exclude people from our society if these apps will be there. Third, maybe most importantly, we should also make sure that we don't see the vaccines and the digital tech in link to that as the final solution. We should not forget the backgrounds of the crisis, and therefore, well, we need to emphasize the importance of sustainability. Zoonosis is the result of how we deal with the earth. And if we will not succeed in shaping the conditions for sustainable ecosystems, we cannot reduce the risks of new forms of zoonosis. And that's a moral obligation that's on all of our shoulders. Thank you very much. And I would like to give the floor to the IBGC chair, Alejandra.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je voudrais remercier le secrétariat de l'UNESCO d'avoir organisé cette table ronde avec des personnalités aussi engagées et inspirantes, et remercier également la présentation que les présidents du CIB et de la COMEST viennent de faire. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, nous réalisons à quel point les organes consultatifs de l'UNESCO en matière d'éthique ont un rôle fondamental à jouer dans l'élaboration de réponses efficaces face aux urgences actuelles. Ces organes sont là pour nous rappeler qu'une accélération de la science et de la recherche, comme nous le voyons depuis le début de cette pandémie, et comme en témoignent les avancées exceptionnelles en matière de traitement et de vaccins contre la COVID-19, doit toujours s'accompagner d'un surcroît de conscience, d'éthique, de respect et de justice. Le comité intergouvernemental de bioéthique de l'UNESCO, que je préside, salue l'initiative du CIB et de la COMEST de s'être réunis en ce contexte si particulier pour élaborer une déclaration sur un sujet au cœur de l'actualité et qui en plus nous concerne toutes et tous. Ce que nous saluons particulièrement, c'est d'avoir, dans un contexte d'urgence sanitaire, d'urgence politique et d'urgence économique, pris un temps de réflexion pour considérer aussi les enjeux d'ordre éthique et moral qui se jouent en ce moment autour des vaccins contre la COVID et leur distribution. Cette marche collective nous rappelle que malgré la nécessité d'agir, parfois de réagir le plus rapidement possible, nous ne pouvons pas nous passer de dialogue et d'échange en ce qui concerne des sujets aussi importants. Les questionnements éthiques doivent rester, malgré l'urgence, au centre des préoccupations, et ces réflexions doivent venir renforcer la démarche scientifique et la prise de décision politique. Les trois comités de l'UNESCO en matière d'éthique forment un espace de dialogue et une chambre d'écho mondiale où les questions de bioéthique et d'éthique sont débattues de manière inclusive. Compte tenu de la diversité incroyable de nos membres, que ce soit de point de vue géographique, culturel ou disciplinaire, nos organes offrent une plateforme de discussion et des coopérations internationales sans pareil. Cela devrait encourager les sociétés et les décideurs politiques à procéder à une analyse éthique approfondie des problèmes complexes comme ceux liés au vaccin et de veiller à ce que leurs décisions soient prises dans le respect des notions d'équité, de justice et de dignité humaine. Cette table ronde arrive à point nommé et je suis certaine qu'elle ne pourra que participer à une meilleure compréhension de la situation actuelle et aussi à nous éclairer tous. Je voudrais donc finir par exprimer mes sincères félicitations et remerciements à tous les membres du CIB et de la COMEST pour ce travail formidable. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente de l'IGBC, et aussi pour le président de tous les autres comités. I feel that from the statements we have heard now is really timely, because as our chairs just said, we're still in the pandemic. We're discussing the solution, which are the vaccine, but we're still in the pandemic. And therefore, the way we handle these things, the better we go out from this situation. I really like what Hervé mentioned on the ethics for action, but also Peter Paul, this question of how do we handle the things now will determine what kind of a world we'll build later. And remember, the DG mentioned trust. Having solidarity on the vaccine distribution, production, and covering for low and developing countries will help us rebuild trust that will be necessary to have a better outcomes after the pandemic. Now, I really want to give the opportunity to the participants, not without before thanking a lot our dear Daphna Feinholz and her team and the secretariat of the committees, because on top of advancing the recommendation of ethics of AI, which is an humongous work, they also help us produce this very important setting. We receive feedback from the WHO, we receive feedback from friends in the G20, and all of them were very pleased to know that UNESCO has this force and this willingness to join the global call for equitable distribution of vaccines and the global call to treat vaccines as a global public good. So now we are going to move to the... If that's agreeable to all of you, I would then give the floor to our chairs. Please, Hervé and Peter Paul.
Alors, merci beaucoup, Gabriela. Je vais tout d'abord, comme vous l'avez demandé, rappeler, c'est quelque chose d'évident pour tout le monde, mais qu'est-ce qu'un bien public mondial? Un bien public mondial doit répondre à 3 critères. Et nous sommes bien dans le contexte, on va le voir, de la vaccination. Le premier, c'est la non-rivalité. C'est-à-dire que nous ne sommes pas, comme avec les produits de consommation courante, dans une concurrence qui pourrait priver certains consommateurs de la possibilité d'accéder à ce bien public. Le deuxième élément, et on voit la centralité de la question des brevets dans ce deuxième élément, c'est l'impossibilité d'exclusion. Un bien public, personne ne doit en être exclu. C'est un peu les rayons du soleil. Personne ne peut en être privé, personne ne peut en être exclu. Et le troisième point de la définition, c'est l'impossibilité d'abstention. C'est-à-dire qu'on ne peut pas se priver de boire, on ne peut pas se priver de la lumière du soleil. Eh bien, face à cette épidémie, on ne peut pas se priver des vaccins. On voit bien que le vaccin correspond à ces 3 éléments de non-rivalité, d'impossibilité d'exclusion, d'impossibilité d'abstention, et qu'on est bien dans un contexte mondial, puisque les frontières, le virus ne les respecte pas, et que notre action ne doit pas les respecter non plus. Et c'est pour ça que des institutions de l'ONU comme l'UNESCO ou l'OMS sont tellement légitimes à intervenir dans ce champ. Je dirais en conclusion que nous devons passer des mots à l'action. L'éthique, ça doit être notre boussole qui nous permet de rendre ces vaccins sûrs, disponibles rapidement, comme l'a dit Antalya. Les infrastructures pour les produire existent ou doivent être mis au niveau localement pour produire le plus rapidement possible ces vaccins dans les meilleures conditions. Et pour cela, nous devons nous unir, cette question de solidarité. Nous ne devons pas avoir de blocage entre le secteur académique public et le secteur privé. Nous devons avoir chacun notre responsabilité, agir main dans la main, en bonne harmonie, en bonne entente. C'est ça l'humanité. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Hervé. Great definition. And unfortunately, Professor Sachs just said he had to go. But this is a very basic economic definition, the global public good. but that confirms this issue that you mentioned at the beginning, that ethics is for action. Peter Paul, and I am told by Daphna, who is my manager, that I would need to open then to some observers, and I'm happy to do so. But Peter Paul, please, your first reactions. And I don't know if Alejandra wants to chip in now or we do it at the end. So please.
I'll keep it brief. Thank you very much, Gabriela. Yeah, maybe what I take from the discussion is that with the vaccines also comes a duty to take good care of the world that will emerge from this whole pandemic, right? We have to stay ahead of the matter. Ortega y Gasset, the Spanish philosopher, made this distinction between life as survival on the one hand and the good life on the other hand. I think we need to make sure that we keep combining both. So we are now working on survival, which is extremely important. But there will be a world after the pandemics where the good life is important. And we are currently learning a lot from the digitalization of the world. It brings important lessons. It brings inclusiveness. More people can participate in events than ever before. But it also means that we miss forms of proximity. So I think vaccines are first, and there is a big duty on our shoulders to deal with them in a responsible way as a public good for everyone. But immediately after that follows a good and a just society emerging from the pandemics. And for that, we need global ethics, for which UNESCO is, I think, the place to do that. Intercultural dialogue, together exchanging ethical ideas about what world we want to emerge from the situation that we are in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alejandra?
Oui, merci Gabriela. Je pense que le message principal est, une fois de plus, que malgré l'urgence, la dimension éthique et de respect des droits de l'homme doit rester au cœur de nos préoccupations et informer toutes nos décisions publiques. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. Très, très sage. With no further ado, and we are exactly on time where we are supposed to finish this webinar. I really want to commend the work of both chairs of IBC and Comest, and of course the chair of the IGBC, dear Alejandra. It's not that you are only dealing with vaccines. You're really advancing very important work for humankind, but it's very important that you are showing that you are also timely, that you are part of the very strong chorus of institutions, of people, of concerned countries, to say that we need to change the course on the question of vaccines. We were very hopeful, and I think all of us were at awe at the rapidity at which international cooperation, public-private, delivered the vaccine. But now we are with this sense of frustration, that the vaccine hoarding, the lack of resources, the lack of manufacturing, the question of IPR, all the things that you mentioned in your statement with such a solid scientific basis is really preventing us to see how much we're gonna end up with this pandemic. So I just want to thank you. We at the Secretariat will do our best to disseminate this very important message. As I said, the feedback we received from the WHO, who is carrying this very important mandate to support humankind on finishing with this problem. We're very pleased to know that UNESCO's advisory committees on science, on ethics of science, are really joining forces with this very important message. So thank you so much. And